Hey, buddy. You okay? You sad about Killer Frost?
No,
Really? Then why are you crying?
I still have to watch another season of this. It's so bad. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is The Flash, Season 8, Episode 13, Death Falls. So this might be my favorite episode this season, only because it kills off Killer Frost, which means I don't have to watch the Killer Frost and Mark relationship stuff anymore. Yes! But everything else about the episode was total shit, obviously. So first, just talking about the episode, what was wrong with it overall, before I dig into each individual story and rip into those. The overall feel of it was just full of exposition. And we're basically just talking about what the grief is, how these characters are dealing with it, and they're saying that they're stronger than it and all of this stuff. And ultimately, it doesn't even amount to anything, because by the end of it, they're still all getting the grief sucked out of them. Deathstorm is still absorbing it, and it takes Killer Frost becoming anti-Deathstorm, or Hellfrost. Ooh, isn't that such a cool name? It ends up being her that has to dispel all of the grief. So all of these powerful speeches that they're giving to these grief ghosts that they have doesn't mean a thing. Because they can't overcome it. Even though they have overcome it, it doesn't matter. He's still absorbing it anyway. So why are we spending all the time on these speeches if none of that matters? There's just so much explaining in this episode, explaining how people are feeling, explaining what they're going through. It's ridiculous. And the worst of the bunch is still Cecile. I don't know what her middle name is, but she might as well change it to Exposition because she is easily the worst character. I don't know why the writing team wants to give her, probably because they're dealing with, she's explaining people's emotions, because we can't show that, guys. We can't find a clever way to show what's happening. We can't find a clever way to show our audience what she's dealing with and what she's feeling. So we're just going to have her say everything she's feeling and everything she's experiencing, because that's interesting, right? To watch a character explain everything that she's feeling. Isn't that so much fun? No. That's why show don't tell is a thing, because it's more interesting to show us something than to tell us about it. And by far the worst example of this in this episode is when Hellfrost manages to get rid of all the grief, and we see all the characters sort of having that moment of relief of, oh, it's gone. The grief is gone. We have all of those scenes. We show all the characters feeling relieved that it's gone. Cut back to Cecile. Everybody's okay. The team is okay, or I don't remember exactly what she said, but basically that was her line, is all those scenes you just watched, in case you're too stupid to understand what just happened there, here's Cecile to tell you, hey, that was everybody's okay. Just so you know, you dumb audience. I honestly don't know if that's what it is, if the writing team really thinks that the audience is so dumb that they need a character to spell it out for us so that we can make sure we're keeping up, or if they honestly think that there's no way to show it. And so they're just, okay, well, let's write a line in there so that way we can make sure everybody knows, because it's going to be hard to show that everybody's okay. So we're going to make sure Cecile tells everyone that they're okay. It's ridiculous. But getting into the individual stories, the first one, which is the least offensive to me, is Barry's story. It still is dumb because it's really focused on the grief of his mom, which we already know he's been through a lot of. And I think it was really highlighted how dumb it was whenever she basically yelled at him, "Why didn't you save me?" All I could think was, he did. That created Flashpoint, and he realized it's not a good thing to change the history, so maybe we're not going to do that. But of course he doesn't say that, because it's got to be about, oh, I've accepted her death and him overcoming it. And then she gives him visions of all these other people that he's lost. And this is where you had the one moment that for me was so stupid that I was actually frustrated by it, because they showed Nora amongst all those, and not his mother Nora, his daughter Nora. And here's why that's an issue. We already saw she came back. It was one thing in the moment whenever she disappeared. It's kind of a feeling of, well, we don't know if she's still going to exist or not. This version of her no longer exists, but we don't know if she'll be around. That was kind of the sadness there. She came back. So now Barry doesn't have any reason to feel that grief anymore, because he knows she still exists. And obviously this version, or this grief ghost, is trying to tell him that Iris is going to die, which means Nora won't exist. But the fact of the matter is, he shouldn't be feeling that grief because he doesn't know for sure if that's what's going to happen. So the fact that they showed her in that, like showing Harrison Wells, totally makes sense. I can't remember all the ones that were flashed in there, because there were a few different versions of Wells that popped up. That's why I remember him. But they showed a few different glimpses of people that he's lost. Like his dad, I think, was another one. So all of those make sense because, yeah, he lost all those people. But Laura, he did lose that version of her, but she still exists. He has seen that she still exists, so there shouldn't be any grief there. The stuff with Chester and Allegra, for the most part, was just bland because I don't care about them as a couple. The show has been teasing them as if they're building up this really great will they, won't they story. And this is finally the episode where it feels like they will, like they held hands and they deeply care about each other. They didn't kiss or anything, but it kind of feels like maybe they're finally confirming that they're a couple now. Who cares? I don't care. I'm sure the shippers care, the shippers that watch this show and put all the characters together. If any of them had Allegra and Chuck together, they're super excited about it. But other than that, I don't care. The exposition in this one was also really, really bad because as if we couldn't figure out why the two of them dying together would be sad, we had the grief ghost constantly telling them why it would be sad. You know, Esperanza talking to Allegra, oh, you lost me and you lost the history that we had, but with him, you're losing a future, and that's even more sad. Oh, really? Oh, thank you, show. I didn't realize that was happening. I was so confused. I'm like, why is it sad that she's losing him compared to her cousin? That doesn't make any sense. Idiots. And then we get to the stuff with Iris, and this is where the frustration really started to build. Because first of all, Eddie is a grief ghost. Second time this season that they've decided to end an episode on a cliffhanger, specifically with Iris too, I don't know why, but they've ended it on a cliffhanger, and then in the next episode, cliffhanger resolved. Not really a cliffhanger if we're being honest, because it led to absolutely nothing. Because the first time was whenever Sue came back and Iris was gone, and it was just like a, whoa, she's gone. What's gonna happen? Oh my gosh, did Tanya kidnap her? Did Tanya kill her? Watch next week to find out. And the next week, nope, she's back. Tanya just let her go, I guess. She's back. Everything's fine. And then this one, you've got Eddie shows up at the end, and whoa, why is he here? Is this the real Eddie? Did Iris's time sickness bring him back? Is this like an Eobard Thawne trick? What's gonna happen? Tune in next week to find, and he's a grief ghost. That's it. How is that interesting? Why is that a cliffhanger ending? Just to make us think that he might actually be back, and then he's not? Ooh. What a cliffhanger. I've seen seasons end with cliffhangers to try to get people to return for next season and see what happened. I don't often see episodes and multiple episodes in a season end on a cliffhanger to get people to tune in next week and find out what happened, at least to this extent. And on top of that, I don't often see cliffhangers lead to basically nothing. Basically, it's just resolved at the beginning of next episode. You just figure out, oh yeah, I mean, the teapot is boiling in his hand, so you kind of get a sense that, okay, so this is probably not really Eddie. And then as soon as you see that everybody in Star Labs, the surfaces they're touching is burning as well, that's when you kind of realize, okay, yeah, so this is a grief ghost Eddie. Got it. So right off the bat, already very, very not interested in this story, but then it gets worse because we see Iris dealing with that. All of a sudden, Sue calls Joe in. Joe walks in with a gun and shoots Eddie and knocks him onto his ass. So you remember earlier in the episode, whenever Deathstorm showed up to Killer Frost and she shot ice through him, and then she stabbed him with an ice thing and he just pulled it out and tossed it away? Yeah, you remember that? You remember when Allegra used her powers and went straight through Esperanza? What was that, last episode? You remember that? Apparently now Joe's gun just knocks them on their ass. Whoa! Isn't that crazy? Allegra's powers, Killer Frost's powers, totally doesn't match up to this gun that Joe has. This gun, overpowered as hell, let me tell you. And what's even funnier is you have that moment when he does that, doesn't even mean anything. I mean, Ghost Eddie sits up, puts grief into Sue, into Joe, and stops him from going anywhere. So the thing is, it didn't even matter. Him shooting him and knocking him down didn't even play into anything because he still managed to stop them from leaving. And even if they had gotten out of the apartment, he probably would have just shown up in front of them because it's Iris's grief that's following them. It's not like as soon as they get out of the apartment, suddenly her grief can't follow them anymore. I don't understand why them running away was going to mean anything to begin with, but why show the gun knocking him down? It shouldn't have done anything. So that one was really dumb as well. And then, of course, the main story with Killer Frost, with Caitlin, with Deathstorm, with Mark, all of this stuff. Who cares? You know? And like I said, I did see that the next episode is called Funeral for a Friend on Netflix, so I knew that somebody was going to die. Like I said, I'm glad it was Killer Frost. because that means I don't have to deal with her and Mark anymore. I kind of hope this means I don't have to deal with Mark at all, because in this episode it showed why having him around just doesn't work, because he's not an interesting character. He and Killer Frost are having this meaningful conversation, and all I can sit here and think is, didn't he just betray her multiple times? Didn't he do some awful stuff? Didn't he commit some crimes? And now I'm supposed to just sit here and believe that he's just, hey, look, you mean so much to me. You've done so much for my life. And I thank you for that. You are your own person. He's given these meaningful heart-to-heart conversations. He's not this type of character. He's full of himself. Honestly, he's basically Gaston. But I want to compare it to another character. Imagine if Gaston were talking to, like, Belle in Beauty and the Beast, and he was giving her a conversation like this. That's basically how I feel about it. I don't like Mark. He's shown nothing but being an asshole. He's full of himself. Why do I care about him? Why do I care about his and Killer Frost's relationship? I don't. I'm sure there are some people that do, or else they wouldn't keep this story going, or else they wouldn't have basically most of the after, I don't even know what to call it. It's not after credits, but it's whenever they show the logo, like the outro logo, and then they cut back into the show and show kind of the epilogue there. Most of that was focused on him telling the story of what he and Frost are going to do, the plans that they have, and you got all the characters standing around him going, yeah, what a great guy. You got all of that. So clearly the writers think that the audience cares. So I would assume that people are talking about that online. Because if nobody was talking about Killer Frost and Mark being a good couple, I don't think the writers would keep going with it. I cannot imagine that they are so full of themselves that they just continue something that makes no sense, that is terribly written, that has a character that is so awful. They continue that story despite having no feedback of it being good. So some idiots out there actually probably watched this and enjoyed this story. And if you're one of those idiots, I'm not sorry that I called you an idiot, because you are. Because this story is the perfect example of, oh, he's a bad boy, but I can change him. This is exactly that type of story that leads women into so many awful relationships, because they meet a guy like Mark, how he was at the beginning of his and Killer Frost relationship. They see what he is now, and they go, this will happen for my guy too. And it never does in real life. Guys like Mark, they will always stay like Mark. They will always stay traitors, liars, cheaters, full of themselves. They don't change. They are too conceited to change. And if you're wondering why I'm speaking with such confidence, as if I know that this is what happens, even though I don't date guys, it's because I'm one of those guys that I end up in the friend zone. I end up talking to my female friends, and they talk about guys like Mark. And they've talked about relationships with guys like Mark and how it didn't change and how they stuck with them. I've heard these stories before. So I'm speaking with confidence because I have seen the evidence. I know what happens with guys like Mark. But yeah, most of this story is just focused on Killer Frost trying to become the anti-death storm. She thinks that she can't do it because she doesn't have her own consciousness, but then she does have her own consciousness. She just has to feel grief because she wasn't letting herself feel grief, and that's all it took. And now she's super powerful. She could just get rid of everybody's grief. So of course this leads to the battle against Deathstorm, which was was it even 5 minutes? I don't think it lasted nearly that long. But it was basically just she fights him for a little bit, she absorbs him, and that's it. And then she dies because she absorbed him because it was too much power, which I will give credit that makes sense. Because I could definitely see one of these CW shows having her absorb all of this power from Deathstorm, which he is basically the being of grief. He's been doing this for so long. I mean, Caitlin talked about it too. He's been doing this for a millennia, so he has the ability to handle all of this power. So it would make sense that absorbing him might be too much for her. And I'm glad that they didn't just, let me just inject her with cold fusion, and she's good. I'm glad they didn't do that, because that would have been even dumber. But at the same time, the way that everybody reacted to it, that's where I'm not connected at all with this. Again, you're showing Marcus after we already know she died. You're showing him talking about all the plans that they have to try to really build up the emotion of, guys, listen to everything that he had planned for them and how excited he was to spend so much more time with her. And now she's gone. It's just so sad. Nobody cares. Again, some people probably care. Nobody with a brain cares. If anybody with a brain is watching this, they're not interested. They don't care about this story because it's not an interesting relationship. They are not interesting characters. Then, of course, Barry and Caitlin come in, deliver the bad news. Everybody starts crying. The dumbest thing in all of that, because again, I wasn't connected with any of the emotion, but I'm watching everybody, and they're all hugging their significant others, except for, of course, Mark and Caitlin, who don't have their significant others there. For Mark, I don't give a shit. He can cry on his own all he wants. Go ahead. For Caitlin, though, I'm sitting there watching, and she's bawling, and everybody is just hugging their significant. Barry's hugging Iris, Allegra's hugging Chuck, and Joe's hugging Cecile. Why is nobody hugging the girl who just lost basically her sister? I know everybody was friends with her. They all care about her. She's a teammate. So, of course, it makes them sad too. But of all of the team members, who is going to be affected the most by this? Probably the one who literally had Killer Frost defend her from a young age, was basically a sister to her. How did that make sense? Cecile eventually, after a minute or so of hugging on Joe, eventually goes, "Oh, Caitlin." I'm sitting there watching her. She is bawling by herself, basically curls up into a ball on the floor, crying her eyes out. And everybody's just, "Oh, come here, my love. I know. This is so sad. This is so sad for us, isn't it?" I'm sure we feel just as much as the girl over there who's known Killer Frost her whole life. And it was super close. I'm sure this is just as sad for us. So let's hug each other, because at least we have each other. For Mark, too, I don't care about him, but that's got to be a kick in the teeth. All these people are hugging their significant others. He just lost his significant other. It was so stupid, it bordered on funny to me. I was kind of chuckling looking at that, going, really? This is what we're going to do with this scene? How stupid can you be, director or whoever set up that scene that way? Maybe the writers were like, and everybody hugs their significant others. No exceptions. Do not let anybody hug Mark or Caitlin, because we want it to be even more sad that they're crying on their own. Oh, God. This show is so bad now. And I'm not excited for what the rest of this season holds, because who knows? Is it going to be focused on Iris's time sickness? If so, how is that going to involve fighting a bad guy? I would assume that they're probably going to have kind of a villain of the week structure from now on, if that is what they're doing. If it is going to be about Iris's time sickness, I'm assuming that's what it's going to be. But even if that is the case, the problem is I don't care enough about Iris's time sickness, because it's such a stupid storyline. It's been going on for so long with no real resolution to it. It's just been a thing that's been happening. And now all of a sudden it's going to be maybe the big talking point for the rest of the season is whether or not she's going to lose herself because of the time sickness. How many times have we dealt with also Iris has a ticking clock and she's going to die if you don't do anything about it, Barry? Isn't this like the third time now? How many times are we going to return to this? Because obviously the Savitar thing, we knew she was going to die there. But I'm pretty sure there's another time. Actually, no, I think the other time I'm thinking it was Barry who had a ticking clock. Because ultimately, the three stories have all been focused on their future together and their kid and all of that stuff. But anyway, I've talked way too long about this first episode. And I'm sure I'm going to have more to say, so get ready for another long review probably. But I'll see you guys in the next episode in just a minute. And now, episode 14, Funeral for a Friend. I checked out after the beginning of this episode. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, I saw all of it, but I honestly, my brain turned off. Because the fight at the beginning was so dumb. It killed my brain cells and put me into a state of, what? People were talking. I heard words. There are some things that are still there. There are some things that stuck, but large majority of this episode, I was not in it. I was not paying attention, because the first fight scene is easily one of the dumbest things that has happened this whole season. First of all, the guy's name is Blockbuster. What kind of name is that? What, is he going to be replaced by a guy named Netflix in the next episode? What? Blockbuster? Well, because he stamped his foot down and it busted a bunch of blocks. Yeah, that makes sense. You guys are idiots. Again, maybe this is a comic book character, but my God, the naming is so bad. Ever since Cisco got off the show, it's been terrible. The names have been the worst, and some of that's not even him. Sometimes the villains name themselves, like Deathstorm, and it just sounds stupid. But we've got the team shows up. Barry's there, Cecile's there, and Allegra's there, and they just sort of stand there. And Barry's like, "Hey, Chester, what's his suit made of?" Of course, Chester, dealing with his grief or whatever from Killer Frost, is just sitting there. I know my friends are about to fight a guy, and if I don't help them, they could die and add to this. But sure, let me now get all mopey and dope. Oh, right, sorry. So he tells him, and then the guy steps down, breaks the building, And Chester has to go into, hey, Barry, here's what's going on with the building. Barry's like, all right, don't worry. I'm going to do this and this and this, and I'm going to save those people. Hey, you guys, do this and this and this. Okay. And then he runs away. And then Chester's like, all right, Allegra, do this and this and this. Says Frost's name, causes her to hit the car for some reason. Don't know how that makes sense, but sure, she hits the car, knocks herself out from the explosion. Cecile has to tell Chunk what happened, and then she tries to calm him down, but instead she explains to us, oh wait, no, this is what's happening, and this is what's happening, this is what's happening, so I can't do anything about it. And then the guy gets away. That scene killed my brain cells. It was so dumb, to the point where even having a perfectly set up joke where as the guy's walking away, he's like, worst superheroes ever. That joke right there is just, it's a softball. It's like, yeah, because you guys wrote him that way, out of the park. So easy to make a joke based on that line. I didn't even care. I didn't even care that joke should have made me laugh, because it's almost that meta but not meant to be meta joke. I didn't laugh. I felt nothing. I was numb because of everything that had just transpired for the past couple minutes before that. I don't even know. Did writers write this? Again, I talked about this before. There's a good chance they used AI for this. It would make a lot of sense if they just used AI for this, because it feels robotic. It feels like a machine spitting out information at you. There's no life behind this. It feels so pointless. It's awful. So either the writers are just terrible, they've got some of the worst writers in history, or they just put some ideas into a machine and said, hey, write a script. And so the program spit out all of these lines that sound robotic, sound expository, because a machine doesn't understand show don't tell. It's going to tell because that's what machines do. So like I said, I wasn't fully paying attention for the rest of this episode. I do know it focused on these different stories, starting with Iris, then to Chuck and Allegra, then to Barry, and then over to Caitlin. So I know that was kind of the focal point of this. And I think they were trying to do kind of a representation of the 5 stages of grief, and then the funeral was supposed to be kind of the acceptance stage, because in some way Iris was kind of bargaining because she was trying to pass off this story to somebody else because she didn't want to do it. So she's like, hey, he can do it and do a good job, right? For Allegra and Chuck, obviously it was all about anger because they were constantly bickering, which that's fun to watch, isn't it? Barry's the one that I don't really know for sure, because he was focused on trying to complete this list that I think he and Killer Frost had. Again, I remember he had a list. I remember he was doing a bunch of different stuff. I do not remember the reason why now. He explained it to Mark, but my brain was mush at that point, because if the fight scene at the beginning didn't kill all of my brain cells, the Iris story and the Allegra and Chuck story definitely finished me off. So I'm not sure if he's supposed to be sadness or denial. I felt like Caitlin's story was more so denial, because she was acting as if, oh, if I don't go to the funeral, she's not actually dead. Like, that's when she'll be dead, is when I'm at the funeral. And of course, even at the end, oh, she stole a piece of her hair because she's going to bring her back. So basically, she's still in denial. Cool. So I don't really know if Barry's story was supposed to be sadness or not. It felt more so like he was just so focused on completing the list. I guess Mark's story was more so sadness, and Barry's story did involve him, which, is he going to be a regular cast member now? Because having Caitlin talk to him about recreating Frost has me a little concerned that he's going to be sticking around for longer. And I was kind of hoping with Killer Frost being gone that he would not be here for much longer. So if he does end up sticking around, well, there goes some of my enjoyment of last episode, because the only enjoyment I had was I didn't have to watch the two of them be a couple, and I kind of was hoping he would be off the show now, because if he's not dating her, then why is he still here? Because he's not a good guy, and I don't think anybody on the team likes him, so why would he still be around? Well, here's your reason, because Caitlin and him are going to work together to create Killer Frost again. No, she's dead. You killed her off. Stop rewriting this stuff. With Killer Frost, we had last season, she made this really tough decision to go to jail to save all these other metas. She did that. They rewrote it, and now she's back on the team, and we're all happy-go-lucky. Now this season, they killed her off. The team's sad that she's gone. Do not just bring her back because, oh, well, now everybody's happy-go-lucky. It's all good. Don't. Please, stop. Before I wrap up, there are a couple things that just sort of popped into my mind that I recalled from watching this episode that did stand out to me. First of all, Allegra and Chuck. I mean, their whole story is already stupid enough. apparently they're just friends still. I thought after last episode we had finally just, okay, they held hands, they cared for each other deeply. Are we finally quitting this stupid will they won't they about two characters that I don't care if they're together or not? No, no. In this episode, they're still friends. We're still friends. We're friends. We're good friends. So they're still constantly repeating that they're friends, which tells me, okay, so we're still doing the will they won't they story. Right now they're just good friends, but they're not actually a couple yet because we don't want to move too quickly, guys. I mean, it's been what, 14 freaking episodes this season that we've had to deal with this? That's a little too fast if we did it now. We should wait a little bit longer. Oh my god. And then at the end we have that Taylor girl coming in to talk to Iris about the story that she wrote. And there are a couple things in the scene. First of all, she bashes Allegra. Again, I don't care about this stupid little catty bitchy thing that they're doing, the mean girls at the CCC or whatever. I don't care about that. So why are we still focused on her at all? And also, she knows Iris and Allegra are super close. Like, she knows they're friends. I would understand more so if she was upset about the nepotism that's being shown, where Iris and Allegra, since they're so close and she's given Allegra all of this opportunity and going with her stories over hers because they're close friends, that would be more understandable if she was upset with Iris about that. But for her to just be like, oh, who'd you hear that from? Allegra's terrible. Like, straight to her friend? You really think gossiping about her friend, is she just going to be like, oh, really? She was bad? No, of course not. She's going to talk to Allegra. Allegra's going to tell her that she was fine. And now you're going to get fired because you're trying to talk shit about a coworker that is close friends with a boss. That's stupid. If I was working for a job and I knew there was nepotism going on, I would not complain about the person who received the nepotism to the person who was giving them the nepotism. That wouldn't work out for me. I would end up in the shitter. So I don't understand what her thought process is there, other than, oh, maybe I can try to cause a rift there. You're not going to. And then the other thing that was stupid about it is she's talking about these members of Team Flash, and shouldn't we look more into them? Sorry, do people not see them? Cecile isn't wearing any sort of mask or anything to cover her identity, and she's a very well-known meta attorney. Why don't people know who she is? Allegra, I can understand a little bit more because she's not as well-known, but for Cecile, people should know who she is. So I don't really understand why there's a question of, hey, who are these people? For one of them, you should know. People should already know. They're taking pictures, right? I mean, we live in a society where everybody's taking pictures. How have people not taken a picture of Cecile and gone, hey, that's Cecile Horton, the defense attorney? I don't know. Maybe she's wearing a leather jacket, so people don't know who she is anymore. Is that really what we're going to go with? At least I think it's a leather jacket. I could be wrong about that. But anyways, this episode was shit. It was absolutely terrible. It's about a character that I don't really care about. All these people reacting to her death. All these people really impacted powerfully by it. You know, they're really getting in there and talking to all these people. You know, the one prosecutor that was trying to put her in jail. Oh no, I turned it around, and you know now I'm gonna be. What'd she say? She said she was gonna become a defense attorney because I think that's what she went with. They're taking the killer off the Killer Frost at Jitters. It's like, oh, what a powerful scene. And it's really not. And also, a couple of things that I did notice, just as far as the production, because that's something else that I tend to notice that I'm sure other people don't. But the killer was very clearly rewritten several times, because you could tell it was not on there the same as the rest of the words. Like, if you looked at it, all the rest of the words on there, all the other drinks that were written on there, they were very clearly, they had been there. They were put on either with a different material or they'd been put on there a while ago. And Killer was very clearly on there to be wiped off, because I'm assuming it had been wiped off several times before that. The fact that the props department didn't do a good job of rewriting it and making it match the rest of the words on there. And then also the set at the bar whenever Mark was going through his little tantrum. The ice that was hanging off of the bar, like in the front part of it, looked terrible. It very clearly looked like they had just put some plastic wrap on the bar and just put some stuff on the plastic wrap. It didn't even look like real ice. It didn't look like he had frozen anything. It's probably some of the worst set and prop stuff that I've seen on this show. But with all that being said, we'll see what happens with Iris next. I don't know if she's going to be the focal point of the next episode, but obviously, with her gone, that's going to be more than likely where the story goes next. I don't know. I don't care anymore. We're moving on. I'll see you there. And now, episode 15, Into the Still Force. Another shit show of an episode, so let's dig into it. Because first of all, starting with Chester's story, we're back to the whole he's streaming all of this stuff on the public's forums, all of this dangerous stuff that could be used horribly, and one of the things, oh, it was all an accident, but it still caused issues. It was still basically a bomb. I look at that, and I go, okay, so we just saw the dangers of it. Sure, they had good intentions and all of that, because of course they did, because there are no bad people. There are no supervillains in this. Oh, wait a minute. But here's the thing. Somebody could look at that, could look at what happened here, could see what they were trying to do and go, you know, I could use that to my advantage. If I built that machine, I could threaten to blow up a building if they didn't give me what I wanted. I could use this and basically create a hostage situation. So you're showing with this whole, oh, it's just an accident, but they still created something dangerous. You're showing why this is stupid. But by the end of it, no, this is a good thing. He's sharing all of his stuff online. And it's so funny how Allegra has flipped from where she was a couple episodes ago when she was telling him why it's dangerous to now all of a sudden she's on his side and trying to convince him, no, you should do this. Keep sharing all of this dangerous stuff online. Keep doing that because all these people should have access to all of this dangerous technology that could be used for evil. Keep doing it, Chester. Go on. Why is this show so stupid? On top of that, you have the stupid thing where he tells her all of this while he's live streaming. It's so funny because he realizes what's happened. He realizes that what he's doing caused this device to be built and put all these people's lives in danger. He realizes that, comes back to the lab, starts live streaming again just to have this really powerful moment where he turns off the camera in the middle of the live stream. Why was he live streaming to begin with? To show his chat this conversation between him and Allegra where he's telling her why this is not something he should be doing anymore? What an idiot. And then it all ends with them going to a bar and he's going to buy her a drink because she helped, of course, not for any other reason. Shut up. Just freaking put them together already. Holy shit. I don't give a crap about this relationship, but my God, if they keep doing this will they won't they for too much longer, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to find out who wrote this season, and that's as much as I'm going to do is find out who did it. I'm definitely not going to kidnap them, put them in my basement, and torture them for putting me through all of their torture. Anyways, moving on. We got, of course, everything going on with Barry in this one, going into the Still Force, seeing Dion's trying to help him find Iris, but not really, because of course he's not, because Joe told Barry at the beginning he's acting too rashly, and so of course he had to be proven right. So now Dion is somehow a villain in all of this, and he takes this particle, puts it inside of him, but then also tells Nora to come into the Still Force, and that's how Barry gets out, is with Nora's help. So what is the point of all of this? I don't get it. Is Dion a good guy or a bad guy? It seems like he's a bad guy in this episode, but then he also helped Barry get out, so maybe he's not a bad guy. What? Motivations are all over the place. Nothing really happened in this episode. Like, Barry discovers what's going on with Iris, and that's about it. He and Nora just get out of there. The Still Force itself is not really that interesting. It's just basically green with a lot of glitching going on. That's kind of it. When Barry gets the Still Force inside of him or whatever, and he's able to see all these things, of course we have to hear him talk about it because seeing it would be too interesting. No, let's have Barry just sit there and just describe everything he's seeing, because that's what this show does. It's exposition central. And of course, just having Nora back in general. It's funny because when they cut to her, I started feeling indigestion, and then they had the joke where they have Bart up in his room, like, belching for whatever reason. I don't know if he was supposed to be sick or that's just him being the quirky, definitely not 12-year-old, definitely an 18-year-old kid that's just going to burp in his bedroom for no reason. I don't know what the joke was there, but what I found funny about it is seeing Nora gave me indigestion, and then he burps. I'm like, oh, gave Bart indigestion too. That's funny. But Nora and Bart, I mean, they're not interesting characters. The acting for them is not great, and I don't know if that's the actors or the director, but they're not well handled. Again, Nora acts like she's in her teens, even though she's supposed to be 25. Bart acts like he's still a toddler, not a toddler, but, preteen, 10 to 12, not 18 like he's supposed to be. They act so much younger than they are. They're not interesting characters. On top of that, finding out Nora apparently is a reporter now instead of what she was doing before, where she was taken after Barry. Okay, why? Like, the biggest thing that this does is just create a problem with her, because she is now writing stories about herself. The opening scene with her in it is her trying to write an article about something she did. Do you not realize how stupid that is? How egotistical that makes your character look, to make them a reporter that is reporting on themselves. It's one thing when Peter Parker is taking pictures of himself as Spider-Man because he knows he can get the best pictures, he can get the best angles, and sell those pictures for a job. It's one thing when he's doing that, but he's not writing articles about himself. Clark is not typically writing articles about Superman. It's Lois that's writing articles about him. It's Iris that's writing articles about Barry. Having Nora write articles about herself makes her seem so freaking conceited, because she is now sitting there describing her actions, oh, so heroic and so daring. What's a better word for daring? How do you think this makes your character likable? If you had any other character, if you had a guy character, for instance, Barry, if Barry was always talking about how great and awesome and amazing he is, people would hate him. People would absolutely despise him. It's honestly why I'm surprised Mark is sticking around longer than he is, because I figured most people would hate a character like him. I don't know, maybe he's just attractive enough so the people who normally hate him are like, oh, but he's good looking and he's got a heart of gold, so it's fine. But I just don't understand why they think this is a good decision. Because it does not make Nora a likable character. To have her writing all these amazing things about herself, it doesn't. But moving on to the final story, which was not that long, but it was probably the stupidest, is we have Mark telling Caitlin he's not going to help. Good decision. However, it was at the beginning of the episode, so in my mind I'm thinking, so Mark, good decision. Actually well done for him to look at this and go, hey, this is wrong. This is mad science. You're kind of a little crazy right now. And yes, I miss Frost, but this is not right. This is not what you're supposed to do here. This is not how you handle your grief, by trying to just basically rewrite it and bring her back. That doesn't make sense. Well done, Mark. But beginning of the episode, that means by the end of it, he's going to have changed his mind. So all I could think throughout the entire episode was, okay, so how are they going to write it? How are they going to write it to where he's changed his mind? He's decided, you know what? You are right. I am going to help you. Because that's how the show works. It's just like with Chester and his streaming. You know, earlier in the episode, he's talking about how he's done streaming. He's not going to do it anymore. But that's just because it's early in the episode. Later on, he's going to realize, no, my streaming does help people, even though it's dangerous. So for Mark, it's, okay, yeah, what he's saying is totally factual. He should not be helping Caitlin because what she's doing is crazy. It's wrong. It's not natural to try to bring somebody back from the dead. But that's just early in the episode, so he's going to later realize, no, you know what, Caitlin's right. We should try to bring Killer Frost back from the dead. But like I said, I was waiting to see how they were going to do it. How are they going to convince Mark? How is he going to decide? You know, with Chester, we saw it was Allegra kind of basically giving him a motivating speech, and then him talking to the person who created the device and realizing, no, they were trying to help people. That's what changed his mind. Still stupid, but they had a reason for it. Mark, he just changed his mind. No other scenes with him throughout the entirety of the episode. And maybe there were some deleted scenes that they didn't have time for, but the fact of the matter is, watching this episode, deleted scenes or no, he, at the beginning of the episode, makes a good decision, says, no, this is wrong, this is unnatural, I'm not going to help you. End of the episode, nothing's happened, you're right, I'm going to help you. This is okay to do. It doesn't matter that it's unnatural, I'm going to help you do this. Are you kidding me? Are you really so lazy that you can't even write a bullshit reason for why he changed his mind? Because yes, he says all of this stuff about, you're right, I do deserve to have more time with her, all this stuff, and basically some of what she said at the beginning convinced him to change his mind. Well, then why didn't it convince him back then? Oh, well, he had time to sit with those thoughts and think about it, and then he decided that she was right. That is a stupid reason. It's a stupid reason for him to change his mind. It's a stupid reason to be okay with this. And granted, I don't think the show is treating this as if it's okay. I don't think they're treating Caitlin and Mark as if they're making good decisions here. But it's still dumb, and it makes him even more unlikable than he already is, which is very hard to do, by the way, because he's already one of the least likable characters on the show right now. So somehow, to make him even less likable is an impressive feat. And I will give credit that the writers are doing a good job of making me hate. I don't think that's the point. I don't think that's what they're trying to do, but they've done a good job with it, regardless. But to not even give like a bullshit thing that happened. The speech that Allegra gives Chester, and then the fact that he finds out what they were doing was for a good purpose. Those are both stupid things. But it's a reason. It's at least the writers went in and said, hey, this is going to happen. This is what's going to change Chester's mind and make him decide he wants to keep streaming. Okay, sure, it's stupid, but you gave me a reason at least. This was just, no reason. Just, he, at the beginning, all of her words didn't matter to him, didn't make him rethink, didn't make him decide she was right. Now, they do. Is that enough? Is that enough for you guys? I hope it is. Because if not, then you guys are probably really going to hate this episode. And I did. I just don't even know anymore, man. I truly don't understand what's happened. Where's all the care gone? Where's all of the effort gone? I want to look up and see if there's been any investigations into whether or not a real person wrote these episodes. Because it doesn't feel like they did. This doesn't feel like it was written by a human. This doesn't feel like any thought was put into it. It feels like we just need these story beats to happen, so let's just have them happen. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter why we get there, just as long as it happens. That's all that really matters. And that's not how storytelling works. You have to have reasons, you have to have logic, you have to have thought put into it. And they just aren't anymore. So I just don't have any answers. I don't have any reasons why. I just know for a fact that they've given up. It feels like they've given up. It feels like they just don't care anymore. They are just writing to write. They're just writing to get a paycheck. And it's not good because of it, unsurprisingly. So with all that being said, those are my thoughts on these 3 episodes. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Flash reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on there as well as some Let's Plays. So check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.